Hi girls, gays, and theys. My name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. Now we are about halfway through the year, which means it is time for the mid-year book freakout tag. Was I planning on filming this video this year? No. But I'm going on a trip for the last like 8 or 9 days of the month, and I didn't get all of my video filming done that I wanted to get done, so I am filming this as a quick little video to make up for the fact that I am not posting everything I planned to post. And I've also not really planned out any of my answers for this tag. We're just gonna kind of go through it together and talk about my initial reactions on the spot to these questions. But yeah, everyone knows what the mid-year book freakout tag is. It is a staple here on BookTube, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop into the questions. So the first question is the best book that you've read so far in 2023. So far this year I've read 61 books. I think 3 of those are rereads, if not 4, but I'm pretty sure it's just 3. So I have read 58 books that are new to me, but my absolute favorite that I've read so far is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is an adorable sci-fi story with a side of romance. In it, we're following our main character, Vic. Vic has been raised all of his life by sentient robots. His father is a robot that kind of developed feelings and a mind of his own, but Vic himself is fully human, but he's never met any other humans in this world. Humans are supposedly far and few between because the world has been overtaken by robots that have developed minds of their own. And then one day when Vic salvages and repairs an unfamiliar robot named Hap, this kind of sets off a crazy chain of events that lead to Vic discovering more about his family, about himself, about the world that he lives in, and this book was just so incredibly well written. The story was so immersive. I fell in love with the characters from the first page. Vic also has these 2 sidekick characters, his best friends named Nurse Ratched and Rambo. Rambo is a Roomba that has come to life, and Nurse Ratched is like a health robot, but she is so hilarious. Both of those characters are just provide so much like comedic value to this story and just make it such a joy to read because it is pretty heavy, the themes in this book, but Nurse Ratched and Rambo just like keep things light and fun, but they're also like sweet and emotional, and the like little bit of side of romance that is in this book is just so pure and sweet and amazing. Vic, our main character, is asexual, so we get that rep in this book. Perfect, I guess, if you're falling in love with a robot. But needless to say, that rep was very well done and I really appreciated it. I always appreciate seeing asexual rep in a book. And overall, I just absolutely loved this book. It means so much to me. I thought it was so good, and it is definitely by far the best book that I've read so far this year, and if you haven't picked it up yet, I implore you to do so. Please pick this book up. It is so good. The next question is the best sequel you've read so far in 2023. I actually have read quite a few sequels this year, so I think there's a tie for best sequel I've read so far, but it doesn't quite count as a tie because they're sequels to the same series, and that is Prince and Pawn and Prince and Bodyguard, both by Tavia Lark. These books are both part of her Perilous Courts series. Prince and Pawn is the 3rd book, and then Prince and Bodyguard is actually like the first book in a spin-off series following a different set of princes who are brothers, but both were equally incredible, equally 5 stars. Love them so much. This series is basically set in this fantasy world. Each book follows a romance of a different prince in this fantasy world. They're all male-male romance books. In Prince and Pawn, we have like the anonymous trope and the arranged marriage trope, except our main love interests are not the ones arranged to be married. Our main character is actually arranged to be married to our love interest's brother, but they hooked up before they knew the identity of one another, so that's spicy and juicy and really good. I love this book though, it's so sweet. And then the Prince and Bodyguard, obviously a bodyguard trope, but we also have a like a soul bond trope, because in this country they have a tradition where when they get a bodyguard, or like, I forget what it's called, if they called it like a soul guard or something like that, but anyway, they're connected so they feel when one another is in pain, but as they start to fall in love, the bond begins to mutate and they start to be able to feel other things through the bond. And I don't know, since I was like in high school reading fan fiction, the like mental bond physical bond, whatever bond trope has been one of my favorites. So I loved seeing it in this book, and it was done really well. I loved it so much. It was so just amazing. I loved it. So if you haven't read the series yet, I wholeheartedly recommend it. I know I've recommended it on my channel before. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have that service, it is free to read and literally just is so incredible. So good. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I know there's like so many books that I could say for this. The one that is coming to mind, because it is right in front of me, is The Fiancé Farce by Alexandria Bellafleur. I have loved Alexandria's previous sapphic romance releases so much, so I'm so excited to get to this one, especially because it is like a fake dating, fake fiancé kind of situation. I honestly don't know much more about it than that, but just like look at the cover. It is so beautiful, and I love Alexandria's writing. I love her characters, so I really don't need to know much more about it than that. She's one of my favorite sapphic romance authors, so I'm so excited to pick this one up. The next question is your most anticipated release for the second half of 2023. I have a couple answers for this. There are, I think, 4 books that are coming out the second half of the year that I'm just so excited for. I couldn't choose just one. The first of which is All the Hidden Paths by Foz Meadows. This one doesn't come out until December, so I've got quite a while still to wait for this one, but this is the sequel to A Strange and Stubborn Endurance, which I read last year and absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite books of 2022, so I'm very excited for the sequel. I'm a little bit like hesitant because the first book didn't necessarily need a sequel, but I think it's going to be good. I trust Foz Meadows, and the reviews that have been out so far from people who have ARCs are like very positive and all say the same thing. Like they didn't know that they needed a sequel to this book, but it was like really good sequel, so I'm very excited for it. Basically, the first book follows our main characters, Belle and Kay, who are in an arranged marriage, and there's lots of like trauma going on. It's kind of a book about healing from trauma and like coming to trust somebody and fall in love with them, and it's set in this beautiful fantasy world and has lots of like politics and assassination attempts and like action and stuff going on. So I really love the first book in the series, and I can't wait to see where Belle and Kay's story goes from there in this book. So I'm definitely highly anticipating this one. Another fantasy series sequel I'm highly anticipating is A Power Unbound by Freya Marksey. The first book in this series is called A Marvelous Light, and the second book is called A Restless Truth. I loved both of those. The first book a little bit more than the second book, just because the second book, our main characters didn't necessarily have like a you're the one for me type of romance. They just kind of had a fun for now romance, which is not my favorite thing in the world. But basically, this is a fantasy series. Each book follows a different couple because it's kind of like a fantasy romance type of deal. We were introduced to the characters that are going to be in this third book in the first and the second books. I'm excited to see where the story keeps going. Basically, the overarching plot of the series, other than the romances, is that this is set in a world with magic. Humans don't necessarily know about magic, and it's kind of Harry Potterish in a way where the first book, the characters work at the like magical office, and one is a liaison between the humans and the magic people. But basically, there is this set of 3 objects that if the holder has all 3 of them, they can control everyone's magic. And basically, these objects are being collected for nefarious purposes by these bad people, and in each book they're kind of, I think, finding one piece of this group of threesome, this it's hard for me to verbalize these like fantasy plots. Like, what am I talking about? So basically, the characters in this series are trying to get these objects back so that magic is not taken from everyone and used for nefarious purposes. So the first book was a male-male romance, the second book was a female-female romance, and this third book is another male-male romance. And like I said, we already were introduced to these characters. So very excited to read this book and for it to come out. It comes out in November, so I also have a little while to wait for that one. Of course, I also could not make this list without including Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This book comes out in October, so a little bit sooner, but still a couple months away still. This is the conclusion to Ashley Herring Blake's Bright Falls series. These are all sapphic contemporary romances set in this small town. The first one, Delilah Green Doesn't Care. The second one, Astra Parker Doesn't Fail. In this third book, Iris Kelly doesn't date. Iris is the last person in the little friend group that is established in this series who has not had a romance yet, so this is her romance. Iris from the very beginning has been my favorite character of the main characters in this series, so I'm so excited to finally get her romance. I really think that I'm going to absolutely love this one. The first 2 books were like 4.5 stars for me, but I really feel like this could be the first 5-star book because just how much I love Iris. I'm very excited for her romance, so can't wait for this one to come out. And another sapphic romance that I'm highly anticipating that I couldn't not include is Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. This is Meryl Wilsner's newest contemporary sapphic release, and it just sounds so cute. I really love sports romance books, even though I don't like sports. So this one should be right up my alley. So basically our main characters, Grace and Phoebe, are both on the US national team. Grace has led the team for almost 10 years, even though she's only 26, so she's kind of like a star in the soccer world, but she gets injured and is replaced for the time being by Phoebe. So the two are kind of set up to be rivals, but they fall into a friends with benefits type of relationship that maybe turns into more, and they have to decide if their spot on the team is more important or if their relationship is more important. This sounds so good. Like, I'm very excited for this one. I feel like this one might be my first full 5-star Meryl Wilsner. I have a good feeling about it. This one comes out in September. They're all in a row, I guess, backwards row. So I am so looking forward to getting my hands on this one when it finally comes out. All right, the next question is your biggest disappointment. This one's kind of difficult for me. I feel like I haven't had too many disappointing reads this year. Like, I've definitely read some bad books, but I wasn't necessarily expecting them to be 5 stars. I think the only book really that I was expecting to be 5 stars that wasn't, or that I was expecting to really enjoy that I didn't necessarily, was Bonds of Brass by Emily Scretzi. Seeing this cover and reading the description, I was really expecting this to be Winter's Orbit in a different font. And sadly it wasn't. I think maybe I just had the wrong expectations. Not really though, because it is very similar. It just didn't deliver on the romance front in the way that I wanted it to. Basically, this follows Etienne and Gal, and they are roommates at this military academy.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
This world is kind of in turmoil. There is a rebellion developing because the Umber Empire kind of brutally took over the other empire that I can't remember the name of. Etienne is actually from the empire that was taken over, and Gal turns out to be the heir to the Umber throne. So these two boys are like best friends, have a little bit of a romance attraction brewing between them, and then they discover this. So Etienne has to decide if he is on Gal's side because he sees his goodness, believes that he could be a good leader, or if he is on the side of the rebellion of his previous countrymen. And this whole book is set in space. It's very exciting, lots of action. But the romance between Gal and Etienne just did not deliver, like I said. Even if there's a will they, won't they, I want to be sure of the characters' feelings. Like, I would almost prefer miscommunication to this book. We're really only getting Etienne's perspective, which was one problem. I really wanted to get Gal's perspective too, just so I could know what he was thinking and feeling. But we're in Etienne's head the whole time, and he just keeps going back and forth in his head about if he even likes Gal or not, which just didn't work for me. I wanted a romance, okay? And this really just was not a romance. This is a series, so I would have been fine them not being together in the end, but I just want to believe in the romance, and I didn't, because they just kept going back and forth and being unsure of their feelings, and no one was really committing to feeling any type of way. So I was like, do we even like each other? I don't understand. So this just did not work for me, and I was very disappointed that it didn't work for me. So this is probably my biggest disappointment. On the other hand of things, my biggest surprise of 2023 was probably 6 Times We Almost Kissed and the One Time We Did by Tess Sharp. When I went into this book, I was just expecting a cute, light, fluffy YA story. This is basically a story about 2 girls whose moms have been best friends forever, and the one mom decides to donate, I think, her liver to the other mom because the other mom is sick, and they combine their households for the summer for a little while they are in recovery to just help each other out because they're both single moms. And so Penny and Tate, our main characters, have to learn to live together, even though they have there's always been some friction between them. They don't necessarily get along the best, even though they are there for each other always. So going into this book, I thought that it was going to be just a fun little enemies to lovers cute time, 3.5 star kind of vibes. No, this book was a full 5 stars. It was incredible. Like, this book reminds me why I can't write off YA totally as a genre, because it just was so incredible. It had such emotional depth. I loved the relationship between Penny and Tate. It was so meaningful to me. They cared so much for each other. It really wasn't enemies to lovers. They just kind of like didn't see eye to eye necessarily all the time, but they were in each other's corners so hard, ride or die, no matter what, like unconditionally in each other's corners when literally no one else in their lives were in their corners. And I just appreciated the fuck out of that. I loved it, and I loved how their relationship developed, and I just thought it was so sweet and pure, and I don't even know. And then all of the familial relationship turmoil that was going on in the background just was like so emotionally intense, but I don't even know how to explain it. This book was just so well written, so emotional, so beautiful. Absolutely freaking loved it. And it was just not what I was expecting, but it was the most like pleasant surprise, and easily one of my favorite books of the year so far. The next question is my new favorite author. This is kind of a weird question. Like, I'm just not sure exactly who to pick for this, because a lot of my favorite books, like TJ Klune was already one of my favorite authors. Ashley Herring Blake's already one of my favorite authors. Like, I've read a lot of authors this year that I've read before and loved before. I haven't read a ton of new authors that I've fallen in love with. Like, I've read new authors, but it hasn't been like, I love this. Like, I think the only one is probably the Test Chart book, The 6 Times We Almost Kissed. But I can't say that she's a new favorite author because I've only read that one book from her. So I feel like that maybe in the future she might become my favorite author. But as of now, I feel like I can't say that. So I think what I'm gonna answer for this question is actually Willow Dixon. I've read 2 books by her this year. Never Have I Ever Punched My Roommate's V-Card, and Never Have I Ever Submitted to My Enemy. And I also read Step Bully by her, but I didn't like that one as much, but it's an older book anyway. Basically, these are male romance books that just have some of my favorite tropes, like particularly Never Have I Ever Submitted to My Enemy, because that book has the anonymous trope in it where the 2 characters are talking online and also know each other in real life. And in this particular book, they hate each other in real life, but are like falling in love with each other online. I just eat that trope up, especially the scenes when they discover like who they've been talking to. The one in this book is so fucking good. So fucking good. I love it. It just, the emotions, the tension, the like shock, I'm here for it. I love it. So that's why that book really worked with me. I also feel like these are like spicy male romance books, and I feel like the amount of like emotional relationship development to smut was really even and worked really well for me. And it also had just the right amount of like light kink in both of them to be unique and fun to read, you know, because sometimes if you've read a lot of books like this you get a little bored, but these books are not boring. I really like both of them so much. They were both like 5 stars. This is like a different category of 5-star, but they were both 5 stars. So yeah, Willow Dixon is probably my answer to this question. My newest fictional crush. Who is my newest fictional crush? Oh, obviously, I read Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane, and Jack from that book is definitely my newest fictional crush. I wish she was real. Oh my god. I'm like getting hot just thinking about it. So yeah, this second chance Christmas romance was one of my favorite books of the year, and Jack, the love interest in this book, is just my cup of tea. I love her. Next question is newest favorite character. I feel like this is a hard question just because I feel like it's kind of like repetitive, because I don't know who else to say except the characters in this book. Like, honestly, I might have to say Nurse Ratched is my favorite character in this book. I love her so much. I think she's so funny. Do I actually like her more than the main characters? That's such a hard question. I love Vic and I love Hap so much. Nurse Ratched though might be my favorite character this year. Alright, another question that's going to have a repetitive answer is books that made you cry this year. I feel like I used to cry a lot more at books, and I just don't anymore. I don't know if it's the stuff I read or what, but In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune definitely made me cry. And also, 6 Times We Almost Kissed and The One Time We Did also made me cry. So yeah, those 2. A book that made you happy is the next question. This book definitely made me happy. Let me try and think of another answer though. Prince and Pawn and Prince and Bodyguard by Tavia Lark also both made me happy. I can't think of any other answers other than the books I already talked about. I'm sorry. My favorite book to movie adaptation I've seen so far this year. I'm not sure I've even seen any. Have I even seen one? I really haven't been like watching anything. have I even watched any movies? Like I watched the new Scream movie with Jenna Ortega in it, but that's not a book to movie adaptation. I feel like the only show I've watched this year is Drag Race. I don't think I have an answer for this. I don't think I've watched anything. But of course, Heartstopper is coming out in August, as is Red, White, and Royal Blue. So I will definitely be watching those, and that is my future answer. Okay, so for the most beautiful book I've bought this year, I'm not really a like special edition book buyer, so I don't necessarily have anything like crazy cool for this category, but I definitely think Spellbound by F.T. Lukens is probably the most beautiful book I bought this year. I just love the cover. It's so pretty. It's like the house and the cat, and it's shiny. I don't know, I love it. I think it's so cool. And it's signed. I'm not sure why, but it is. I just got it at Barnes & Noble. Alright, and then the last question I'm going to answer, because I don't like any of the other questions, is books that you need to read before the end of the year. Basically, there's a lot. I will maybe scroll through my Goodreads TBR for the rest of the year, just so you can get an idea of what maybe you can look forward to for the rest of the year coming from me. I'm gonna try and up my reading a little bit, maybe like nothing crazy. Yeah, now that I'm back on YouTube, it's inspiring me to read more, so hopefully I will be able to knock a lot of these books out. That is all I have for this video today. Thank you so much for watching it. Check out the description for any relevant links if you want to follow me on social media, if you want to shop my PANGO bookstore, if you want to buy any of these books that I have mentioned today and give me a small commission and support the channel, you can do so below. Totally free ways to support the channel. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment. All of those things help me out a lot and I really appreciate them, and I love talking to you guys in the comments. So let me know down there what the best and worst books you've read so far this year are. I think that's all from me today, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.